Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I um, I wanted to come here and do a reading around this week. I believe it's January 26th today. And something about this reading that's been swirling around me, the energy, is that there are things that are collectively going on. It's a wild time to be human in this world, but there are things that are happening around us that are requiring us to fully admit the emotion that is beneath it, or the emotion that is charged up with it. And the thing is when we don't do that, our body has to hold it for us. And so a real life example of this, for example, is what happened with me this morning in a conflict with my husband about something that I was experiencing, and we just could not see eye to eye. And all I wanted in that moment was to feel validated. And what's really important to know about when we're having a difference with someone is that just because you validate them does not mean you have to agree with them, but you can acknowledge the real lived experience of what they're having. And my husband could not see that in the moment because he was trying to express his point of view, which I understand as well. And what happens in that moment is, on a somatic level, I was feeling so much bubbling up, like heat coming through in my stomach. And it just felt like the pressing down, or the not fully admitting of what my perspective or experience was in the moment, even though it did not mean he had to agree with it, but rather that he could agree with the fact that it was real for me, or that it was my perspective. Um, that sort of denial, even though he didn't mean it, is really shitty. It's just like, I think on some microcosm level, there is some degree of where we experience this, and it's just not a nice feeling. And so when that is not expressed, and we were able to repair this and meet each other later on, and he was able to see where I was coming from, that whole feeling just vanished, because I was able to to be met from where I was at, instead of me only reaching where he was at. And the way I imagine this on an energetic level is, when you're in conflict with an idea or a person, is there's this bridge and you're both standing at it, and it's like you can only meet someone to the degree that they're willing to meet themselves. So if someone is on the other side of that and they're not willing to perhaps admit their part in something, then they can only stay where they're at, and you're here and you're meeting them where they're at, and that feels hollow. It feels unfair. It feels frustrating. And not only this, is if you're someone who is consciously exploring deeper work and moving through your shadows, or the parts of you that you've exiled or kept away from the world, something that will drive you crazy about these micro moments is that it becomes a macro expression for all the voices and the truths that maybe you could not express before, and it triggers that. And that's what it triggered for me, and we were able to talk this out. But it's like, it's your frustration and your rage and your anger is going to touch every moment in which you feel rage, frustration, or anger, but to the umpteenth level of how you've either allowed or not allowed, fully admitted what lays beneath it. And because Sean and I are aware of the work we're moving through, it's like I could feel the lineage of voices on, like, the women in my lineage that could not speak for themselves. And in that meeting, in that repairing, pairing with the person I love, and pairing with this life that we love and that we adore, it was as if more expansiveness and space was able to be met in that moment, instead of like this lull that we could have walked away from and left behind. And so I just want to offer that to someone, that if you're in an argument with someone, I see you when it feels like you're not being met, but you perhaps are making the effort to meet someone where they're at. And B, it's not nice to not validate somebody. And just because you validate someone doesn't mean you have to agree with them. All it's doing is you're acknowledging and seeing them for where they're at. And that creates space for compassion, no matter how charged up the situation might be. And I understand that that's not always available in the moment. Sometimes it takes space and time to practice fully feeling what we feel, because if we're not here in the moment, then it's really hard to notice our own inner stuff coming up and out in a moment of frustration and challenge. But what is moving through within us is our responsibility to feel, and how we deliver that is up to us, and how someone receives that is their responsibility. It is this crazy all chemical dance of relationship, relating as humans. And so I just want to offer that before I do this card pull. But I have a feeling, oh, many are moving around this, and the card that flew out is dances on one foot, and it's a balancing act, which sort of reflects what I said. And it's also a 9 card, which marks the ending of a cycle. Maybe perhaps the one listening to this that can connect with what I'm saying is sick and tired of a way of arguing for limitations, or arguing for what their point is. And perhaps the arguing is the need to be right about something is contributing to the frustration just as much as the frustration itself. And to notice that in the body, and just be in the practice of, if you were to let go 10% more, what might that feel like? Balances on one foot is all about creating harmony in your life and not taking it all on by yourself. I remember this movie, Into the Wild, I think it was. And this guy goes off after college to live in the wild. And spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but in the end, when he passes, they find a quote in the bus where he was living, and it says, "Happiness only real when shared." And I feel like balances on one foot speaks to that. It's like you can't take it all on by yourself. Conversations, engagement, the way in which we interact with each other, they're real when shared. What does it mean to fully hear somebody? What does it mean to fully participate in a conversation and listen, to truly listen instead of listen to answer back? And when you're in the practice of being in conversation with someone, just notice in your body, are you thinking about the next thing you want to say? Because if you are, then you've already left the moment. Or are you actually fully listening and integrating with your whole presence, being there on purpose for the moment to hear what this person has to say? We may not know the impact of a conversation in real time, how that might ripple out into the rest of our life, but balances on one foot is all about reharmonizing the pathways through which we meet life, through which we meet each other. And I believe now more than ever, on a collective level, humanity is wildly going through a reshaping in which we're being asked to notice how we're participating in the evolution of how we connect, how we expand, how we help each other, how we show up. And so I really hope this helps someone. I know that's a bit of a longer share. And if you want to take a deeper dive with a read, please DM me. I love connecting with anyone interested in this work. And the hummingbird is back. I wish the camera could capture that. Love you, and may you have compassion for yourself as you navigate this week. And we're moving closer to the Fire Horse on February 17th. And so this is still a very tender time of shedding. And yeah, if you want to take a dive into a reading with me, send me a DM or check my links in the bio. Have a beautiful week.